Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is a little bit different. I'll be speaking with Leif from Devs and Dice. Now we both wanted to do a bit of an end of year wrap up and Q&A for the channels, and we figured we'd combine our forces and try to sort of spread the love a little bit and give a little bit of extra insight into each of our videos. So I've got Leif on with me today, and we'll be answering a few of the questions we got from his community, as well as some of the questions I got throughout the year. And we'll also be talking about some of the things we've got planned for next year and some of our favorite things from this year. So I really do hope you're able to sit through this one. It is a little bit longer, so grab yourself a cup of coffee, sit back, maybe paint a miniature while you're watching this one. I hope you enjoy it. If you have any further questions, please remember to leave a comment below and I will do my best to get back to you. Thanks very much for watching. Let's get into it.
Well, yeah, I actually first got into D&D, even though I'm known as a D&D channel. I checked and I actually got into D&D around 2007. So it was the 5th edition, the introduction adventure called The Lost Mines of Phandelver. Previous to this, I actually had the sort of wrong concept, or I thought that D&D was a little bit of Americanized bullshit, and I was so wrong. I actually fell in love with D&D, and since then D&D has solidified like its place, in my hand as the, definitive fantasy tabletop RPGs. But I've been playing RPGs since I want to say the first one was like when I was 3 years old with this sort of choose your own adventure book series, but I'm not sure that counts. So I would say then around 9 or 10 years old. Was the first time, and it was Swedish role-playing games. So D&D since 2007.
Well, that's interesting because probably my first experience would have also been the Choose Your Own Adventure books. I mean, I used to love those as a kid. Beyond that, I think, we had the Hero Quest board game and expansions as a kid. I wish I still had that copy now. But that was probably my first experience without even really knowing I was getting into RPGs, but they were so much fun. But for me now, and particularly probably my channel now, probably revolves more around wargaming so much than it does around Dungeons and Dragons, although I do have plans for some fantasy terrain and a few videos down that track pretty soon. Actually, definitely in the new year sometime. I should be making some different sort of fantasy terrain, but mine really sparked up about 2 years ago when a good friend of mine started posting miniatures that he was painting online and sending me those, and my interest was piqued straight away, and so I started dabbling with that a little bit, just with like craft paints, not knowing at all what I was doing. But from there, my interest has just grown, and definitely for me at the moment, it's more about the hobby related stuff. So it's painting and it's building terrain. I'm yet to have a proper game of tabletop wargaming as far as, Games Workshop stuff goes, but that's how I've got into it. And, that's how it's just grown, month on month, year on year in the last 2 years for me. So I love every part of it. So for me so far, everything is sort of very recent.
But did you get into D&D through the painting and miniatures as well? Or, because for me it was sort of
recently.
Yeah, okay.
More recently for sure.
Yeah, because for me it was actually, I got into D&D, swore that I never would do, miniatures or terrain or any of that stuff, and then discovered, shit, I think we need that stuff. But for you, it was the miniature stuff that pulled you in? Originally?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've dabbled over the years. I've had a couple of, dipped my toe into some D&D, online through Roll20 and stuff, but I've never finished a campaign. I mean, it's always interested me on some level, but now that I'm sort of on the creative side of it, as far as the terrain and miniatures go, I still... one of my dreams would be to sit down with a group of friends and have plan out a full campaign and play through it, so apart from a little, sort of couple of nights here and there, I haven't really done a great lot, but it's bound to happen for me eventually, I think.
We'll see if we can fix that.
Yeah, oh, that'd be real good. Yeah, yeah. No, I know you've had a lot of experience, especially DMing. So, yeah, maybe one day.
That would be awesome. So the question is whether or not I have any special handcraft or art schooling. I really don't. Sort of ish. The thing is, in Sweden, you go to, yeah, I'm sorry. In Sweden, you go to like, I guess it would be the equivalent of high school, and I studied the media program. So in that sense, yes, I have editing, knowledge. I edited using VHS cassettes or Super VHS.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
You
I mean,
old.
I don't know how many people know out there what VHSs are, but essentially, yeah, it was hell. And I remember I just graduated from that school as they switched out the, park from like these old machines to computers. But in terms of art, I really don't have any sort of art schooling or anything like that. That being said, I have had one class-ish with miniature painting, and this was with Rogland, who's an excellent miniature painter, but more for display miniature painting. And like he takes probably hundreds of hours and so on to paint one mini, and he only like. I would like to see him, like, see his face if I presented him with like a, first wave Reaper Bones mini. He would probably knock it out of the park, no doubt.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know he deals with very good, detailed minis. And I had one date with him, and I was super scary. I was shaking, nervous, and the dude was like knee high to a duck compared to me, and a small guy, very humble, very nice, very, everything I didn't think like a master of his level would be, because I was, again, scared. It was like meeting a superstar. But he was super nice, and I had one day, and I learned quite a lot. But I think more than sort of sitting next to him and painting, I think it was more learning just to see what goes through his head, what does he do. Like, I watched him probably more than I actually was painting my own, but I will finish that model someday.
Well, he does great work. I mean, he did some work for a Kickstarter I backed. It was a Dark Rituals board game, and he painted some of the miniatures for that campaign, and they look fantastic. So you're very lucky, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, the disgusting thing is that some of his minis, you would swear that is a two-dimensional image. And if it was 2D, like, I would understand it. I'm like, yeah, that looks nice. But it blows your mind, especially seeing it in real life, when you're just like, okay, and then let's turn. It's like, what? You're...
Yeah.
So I think, to answer the question, not really any sort of education per se. I always like to draw and stuff, but I'm not very good at it. And I think miniature painting, I guess I'm more about the techniques, but I am moving into a more sort of art side of things. But at the same time, I'm still on the fence whether or not I'm a gamer, wargamer, first and foremost, or like, do I want to become more of a, artist? I don't know, to be honest. I think I want to hit a good balance where it's like, you get as much or as good result as possible with at least amount of time. Because the thing is, it takes time to make these videos. What about you, Sean? So
you're self-taught, essentially, is what you're saying?
I think so. Or YouTube thought, and looking at others taught. I'm pretty good with, I guess, paying attention to things and asking stupid questions, as I call it. So.
Well, and I mean, you mentioned like learning off YouTube, and predominantly that's where as far as miniature painting, that's where everything comes from for me. So I've always had a sort of creative itch to scratch. Like I have I dabble in different hobbies. I love woodworking and wood burning and stuff, but I'd say very far from naturally talented. I'm the same. I can't really draw. Painting pictures is not really my thing either. But I do love to try new things and learn as much as I can. So as far as miniature painting goes, I do watch a fair bit of miniature painters to sort of, slowly take myself to each next level as far as that goes. So, I'm not the best, but I'm not the worst. But it takes, it's like everything just takes lots of practice. But as far as terrain goes, for me, it's I'm a bit the opposite. Like I like the idea of solving those problems. Like how am I going to make stairs? Like as an example, I'll just try to work out a way to get something that looks pretty decent. And with most things to do with terrain, it's the sum of the parts is greater than or the outcomes looks a lot better than each individual part.
Yeah, and I
that's
agree
what I'm trying to say. Something along those lines. But
no,
you know what I mean. And
yeah.
I love to teach myself how to be better at terrain making, whereas I think with miniature painting, there's a lot to be learnt from people that are better than you at it. So, no formal training or classes for me at all, but just trial and error basically is the way I approach both of those elements of the hobby for sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the way you said it, because I can agree to that in my head, painting a miniature for some reason seems more artistic, whereas making terrain seems more like solve problems, but in a creative way.
Absolutely.
And I agree with you. Like I really love that side of the craft as well. But it for some reason it definitely feels more like, okay, how am I gonna do this? Whereas there's still a veil of mysticism, at least for me, when it comes to miniature painting and how do you get to that level. I'm guessing it is thousands of hours.
Yeah, and you have to respect that it is there's so much to learn when it comes to miniature painting. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so many things I feel are and I think that's why I talked about levels for it, because I think there's so many things that are in the next level and the level above that and the level above that, you know what I mean, that require like I know you've been looking into color theories and stuff like that. Like that's an important element that one would argue requires some research behind before you can just do it. Do you know what I mean? Like before that's not necessarily a problem you can work out yourself without looking into the details of those things specifically. So for miniature painting you have to respect those people that are doing really well at it, that it has taken more than just practice. Like it is learned knowledge, I think on some level that takes you further and further in that hobby. So that's why I spend a bit of time when I do have time to paint miniatures. I do try to improve as I go, and that comes a lot from watching other YouTubers do it,
Mm-hmm. Right, so this is interesting. This subscriber actually is one of my favorite commenters, because every video I put out, he essentially does a pun of my name, Leif, as you say it in Swedish, but then some Anglophones say Leif. I think Sean, you've been guilty of that in the beginning at least a couple of times.
In the early days for sure. Yeah.
And I know that Danes say Leif. So for me, it's like anything from Leif to Leif to Leif. I will, because I work with a lot of Anglophones, working as a game designer. So I pay attention to all of that. So sometimes actually when somebody wants to say Leif, it gets, in my head. But shortly, yes, of course, I love every pun, because I'm also from Gothenburg, and I'm a dad, and the whole Gothenburg thing doesn't make any sense to anyone who's outside of Sweden, but Gothenburg is famous for their word puns. So there's plenty of sort of coming from that area. So and then in general, like I like, very rarely, unless someone is actually like on the offensive or being just a dick. Of course, I love every comment. I don't know, what's your take on it, Sean? I mean, comments are bread and butter, I feel like, a little bit.
Oh man, they're the best. Like in the days and weeks after a video release, to still get a comment on there, I get a lot of questions, which is great. There's, I'd say very rarely do I get anyone sort of coming across as a dick, but I mean, and it's hard to, like, you always want to sort of lean towards, the best possible intention when it comes to something that's hard to interpret online, but yeah, I mean, it is really great to see comments come through. Even months and months after a video is released, I still get questions on them, and I do my best to get to them as soon as I possibly can, because to me, it's really important to be able to answer those questions and be there for the people that watch the videos. So, I at one point I actually made a promise in one of my videos to respond to every comment, and I got one comment that just said, and this was like 2 or 3 videos later, I think, and I got a comment on there, and the comment just said, just testing if you'll deliver on your promise or something like that. And I actually remembered the promise I'd made.
Yeah, bastard.
So I commented, and I'd been 2 or 3 hours, and I was like, oh, sorry I took so long, but, it's great to hear from you, thanks for the comment. And he was really good. He subbed, and I believe he maybe asked a question after that. But yeah, it's really important. I know one of my more popular videos this year got over 100 comments, and it was a lot to go through, but I loved every minute of it. So comments to me are, it doesn't matter when they come through, on what video, or whether it's just a quick well done, or an in-depth question, or even a correction, I'm happy to take on board. I get a lot of suggestions for better ways to do it. They're really important as well. So I love to hear pretty much anything coming from the people that watch the videos, for sure.
Yeah, and I know, like, I didn't make a promise, or I think I mentioned at some point that I've tried to respond to every comment, but I had some comments saying, oh my god, you really do respond to everything. Even had a friend saying, Justin, who I painted that beast model of, who I played Rocket League with, he's even said to me, like, you don't have to answer every comment. I'm like, yes, I do. Because I don't know, I feel like, I mean, I'm just going to myself. I watch a lot of YouTube content. Do I comment on everything I watch? No. I think, let's say, easily every 30th video I might comment on, and it might be a friend's video that I actually comment on. But those other 29 videos I don't comment on. So to me, that means, like, people care enough to reach out, and not responding, I think, no, it just would sit wrong with me. So I think we're both on the same page there.
There's a tab on the YouTube studio that shows you comments you haven't responded to, and I think in the earlier days, for some reason, I don't know, I was still very new to it, but I've missed, I think, since I started my YouTube channel, I think I've missed 4 comments to respond to.
Right.
And they haunt me to this day, because they still show up in the comments you haven't responded to. But now it kind of feels like,
it's gone too long.
It feels like a dick move to try and respond, like, 7 months later with a response, just to get them off my list. So I have read them, and I did appreciate those comments. So if you are watching, I really do apologize. It just feels like we're in an awkward silence phase of this relationship right now, and I don't know how to react. So they haunt me, those ones. So yeah, I do my best now to not miss a single one, for sure.
Good.
Okay, so I've only had a couple of requests come through. Most of my stuff is terrain, so the requests tend to be more generalized. I have had requests to try and build more levels, so more vertical terrain, or more vertically playable terrain pieces, which I've definitely tried to incorporate.
We call that verticality.
Verticality. Okay, well, if we want to get technical, sure.
Oh, yeah.
Apart from that, I think I have had a couple of requests through my Patreon members as well, which I'm still working on. I mean, I have a bit of a plan or a schedule for my channel as far as the videos. So I'm usually 4 to 6 weeks in front as far as my plan goes of what I want to release. So I do try to have relevant terrain following previous pieces, so it is a little bit tricky sometimes to incorporate those requests, but anything I've been requested for so far is still on my to-do list if I haven't already done it. But yeah, I mean, I do what I can with it. As far as painting requests, which is what I believe you probably get a little bit more of, being that you do a lot more painting on your channel, I haven't received any yet, so it's not too tricky for me. But how about you? I know you've had some in the past through your comments.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, so I've had a lot when it comes to comments, it feels like, and it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. I do appreciate all of those, asks and, hey, can you do this, and this? But I've also noticed sometimes that I really have to be truthful to myself, that if I'm not passionate about painting it, then, you know what, it's gonna stay there with, half a base coat done, or something like that. So it is tricky. I want to, of course, please my audience as much as I can, but at the same time, sometimes it just, the passion isn't there. I don't feel it for this, mini. And then and when it comes to like commissions or such, I've had, what is it now? Well, 3 commissions, and none of them I've actually, taken any money for, per se. I did the Beast for Justin, the little toy that was just like yay big. I did some, not so long ago, the what do you call it? Now Warhammer 40k Space Hulk, the Terminators, and the Gene Stealers.
Gene Stealers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I finally got my first sort of terrain commission, which was the miniature giant Thors. And none of them I actually asked for money, but I mean, because these are friends and whatnot, and I would feel weird asking for money. But I did get, let's see here, that coffee maker that you can see right there, and it gives me excellent coffee, because they had like 4 of them or something. So it felt like what about a trade?
Yeah.
All right then. But no, in general, I'm positive against. I mean, you should always ask if you want me to do anything, but whether or not I will do it, that's tricky. And also the fact of the matter is, I get more asks to paint something than I can, clear off my backlog. So the sad answer is, I won't get to all of them, most likely. We'll see. I mean, I haven't planned ending, the YouTube career anytime soon, so I hopefully I will get to them. But the fact of the matter is, there's so many miniatures out there, they're so cool, and there's so much terrain one wants to do. So I don't know. We'll see.
For sure. Yeah.
So this is a tricky question. If you had more time to hobby, what is a big project I would want to do? Well, it actually, it's not that tricky when I think about it, because I've literally thought about this, but it's not only time, it's also has to do with like the skills needed. So I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and I love the trilogy, the movies, the Peter Jackson movies. And I think somewhere in my heart, I am something in between a hobbit, a dwarf, and like a rider of Rohan or something. We'll see. The longer the hair gets, the more rider of Rohan I get. So anyways, I would love to do a large diorama of Bag End. The problem for me is that even though I know today I could do it, I could technically do Bag End today, but I want it to be to a certain level where, and I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet, by far. So in my head, it might be my, white whale that I never, get to do. We'll see.
Sure.
But for me...
Well, I hope you do. I hope you do have a crack at it one day.
Because I would have liked to have, like, the background, because, Hobbiton, all of that as well. And how the hell do you do that in some shape or form? If that is, backgrounds that you've painted or something, that might be it. But I would like to look at that and always, hear concerning hobbits, which I used to have as my wake up signal on my cell phone, which I can tell you is not it's not good for me, because then I'll just lie in bed and smile for like an extra half an hour, and I was like, shit. But yeah, so I think for me, Bag End would be amazing to do.
Sure.
Yeah, so Sean, what about you? What's your dream project?
There's probably two things that time's not really my problem. I mean, I'd argue probably money and space would be my two biggest barriers, but the two things that I've been thinking about for a long time that I'd really like to do, and hopefully I'll work out a way to do them, would be as far as terrain goes, I want to try something with a lot of verticality, as you guys say in the games industry apparently. And in that, I'd like to do something like a high rise, in some ways kind of ruined, perhaps, partly destroyed or demolished. But I'd like to, do something in the, 2 to 3 feet high, kind of multi-floored high-rise building. I have a friend that keeps asking, or a couple of friends that keep asking me for Nakatomi Plaza.
I was going to say, like, Nakatomi Plaza pops up in my head.
Yeah, well, exactly. I don't know how realistic that is, because that's a glass high-rise. That seems really complicated. But anyway, so yeah, something like that. And I guess the other thing that would really, that I'd really like to have would be like a proper game table. So as I mentioned, I do a little bit of woodworking, and that's next level sort of stuff. I'm definitely a weekend woodworker, but probably not impossible for me to achieve. That might be my white whale, as you said. So I definitely that's a longer term goal. But yeah, they're probably the two projects that sort of continuously sit in the back of my mind to try and do one day.
Sounds cool. Yippee-ki-yay.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Right, so this one is a super good question, first off, because I'm sure that a lot of people out there are wondering the same thing. I don't know really if I can provide a super good answer. I can say what I did. I bought my first paint set was hobby paint sets, which I still have back here somewhere. But then the first proper miniature paint set, I went with Army Painter. And I still have some of those paints left. But then, once you have that, you have essentially the entire package, I would say. If you have that, then you have pretty much everything you need to make good quality tabletop, minis easily. And also they have their system with washes and whatnot. So it's similar to Citadel has their system, Army Painter has their system. Vallejo, I don't know if they have a system, they just, have their own paints and whatnot. But to me, it feels a little bit like I have some, miniature painters that swear by Scale 75. I have some that swear by Vallejo. I have some that swear by Vallejo Model Color. I have some that swear by Army Painter and Citadel and so on. So to me, I think you can't go wrong with a starter set from Army Painter, because it is a huge set and you are covered. That being said, is it the best yellow in the industry? Probably not. But they might have the best. I still know that or in my friendly local game store, every time somebody asks for black, he's like, Army Painter black. There's the best black better than Citadel, better than Vallejo. So I think it's depending also on what you want to do, because I had just now completed a speed paint using just army painter stuff, and it goes fast. Like, you remember we were on the phone, so to speak, and it like within the hour I had knocked out a somewhat, like, I would say tabletop quality, mini. So I don't know. It's
surprised
tricky.
me, because usually you're at a mini for several hours. I was even surprised you finished that miniature. Normally it's we'll finish this one up on the next time we chat in a day or two. But no, that one was one session and you had it pretty much finished. Yeah.
So I it's difficult for me to say. I think it depends entirely on. So okay, let's try to boil this down. What do you want to paint? How much do you want to paint? Because if you get an army painter set, then you are set to paint armies, essentially. Do you just want to paint your D&D figure? Well, then probably get a smaller set. If that's Vallejo or army painter or Citadel, I don't know. Like, how does your wallet feel like after buying that? So it's tricky. I think you have to always sort of weigh, what are you going to do versus how much are you willing to pay for it. But army painter paints are not bad in any sense. Actually, I don't think of any of the paints we mentioned, any one of them are bad. Like, the only thing I would say with Citadel is, please don't buy a small Citadel set. Don't transfer it to bottles and like leave it to rot, because those pots are evil. That's my take on it.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned what are your intentions. I'd also argue, where are you at in your painting hobby? Like, I spoke earlier about the different levels of where you might be at, and I think that's important to know as well. So you said like the army painter set. I originally started with some sets from Citadel, which were gifted to me by a very good friend, Ryan. Now that included some base colors, some layers, and also some washes. And that was a pretty good place to start, but I found that I was lacking a lot of things. So I was still adding to that collection of paints. I mean, they're pretty good sets. To have all three is really, really handy, but you'll constantly be sort of going to the store and picking out this color because you didn't quite have the right one. I've also tried, I mean, they're great paints as far as I'm concerned, and I consider myself a novice, certainly. Maybe bordering on intermediate perhaps, but for me, they're fine. I have no problems with those, those Citadel paints. I've also tried some Vallejos. Now, I did enjoy the Vallejo air colors just because I do a little bit of airbrushing, particularly with my terrain. And I found they're set to go. Kind of, there's not a lot of mixing to thin them or anything like that, and I mean, they have the dropper bottles, which is, just worlds apart from those pots if you're trying to get it into an airbrush. But recently I got the Army Painter Mega Paint set, and you're right, it is if I was starting the hobby again and I was looking at paint sets or paints it's
a complete set, right?
I think it's the best way to go. I mean, does it have every color? No. I mean, the Mega Paint set particularly, I think it's 50 or 55 pots you get in there, but you are covered for a good range of colors and a good range of shades for the most common colors that you're going to use, and you also get your washes and a few metallics. I found that to be a really good starting point, and like you said, the paints, I know that there are some people out there that are kind of like meh about the Army Painter stuff, but I've had no trouble. I put it through my airbrush as well. I've had no trouble with those. I'm probably not knowledgeable or skilled enough to say one is better than the other. But as far as getting a set goes, if it's in a set, as a beginner set, if Vallejo had the same starter sets as Army Painter, I mean, then you could probably start splitting hairs about which was better. But to start out, I think it's not a bad investment at all to get that Army Painter starter set. If there was equivalent in other brands, I'd probably, we could talk about which was the better way to go. But I think the question was kind of like investing in a set And I think, you know, because they have them, I don't think you'll go wrong with the Army Painter paints, to be honest.
No, and I think one thing I have to say, and this might be oddly specific, because I fell out of love with Army Painter early on, and actually I found this is a little bit embarrassing, but I found this out after the fact, like years after, that, you know, because I was like, shit, they're so thin. The paints are so thin. And then I, you know, spoke to some people and like, what? No, they're super thick. I was like, I had, you know, a Monday example, as we call it in Swedish. I had a bad, you know, copy or something. And then I did my own, you know, paint shaker, which was, I did using an Allen key and a drill. You've seen it. And
I have, yes.
Yeah. And after that, I was like, oh,
it scares
shit.
me, that thing.
It does. And after that, I was like, holy shit. No, okay. Yeah. So it depends, because like some of these hobby stores have also these sets, like obviously sitting around there, and like any brand of paint does, the actual, you know, pigment and the acrylic medium separate. Because if you know, I think Brent did an awesome video about what it actually is. Because one would think that it's I'm probably going to say the wrong words now, and my chemistry teacher will kill me if he finds me, but it's not a dilution actually, because there's like small particles of actual pigment floating around in acrylic, and if they're not shaking around, then they will separate. Just like, you know, water and oil is the, I guess, clearest example. So I think regardless of what you do, like I put an Army Painter like shaker or agitator in each and every one of my bottles. So I think honestly, it's more important that you take care of your paints and your brushes than what brand of paint you have.
Yeah, and that's particularly true in the beginning stages of the hobby, I think, for sure. It's good to know that.
Yeah.
You know. Okay, so Airbrush. This is a pretty. It feels like a love or hate thing when it comes to people's use, or you know, maybe not love or hate, or maybe it's I mean, it's a tool that you can use. I originally purchased mine not actually for miniature or terrain painting. I got this one 5 or 6 years ago, so this was well before, and it was just something I wanted to dabble in to try. You know, there's a lot you can do with stencils with airbrushing that you know, can produce really good and satisfying pieces of art without a lot of skill or knowledge. So there's a very, I wouldn't say a steep learning curve, but a very long learning curve as far as airbrushing goes. So there's a lot you can learn, and a long way you could go from beginner to proficient even. But I use mine a lot for my terrain pieces at this stage, just for, you know, putting down base coats and things like that. The coverage on it is really good, and, you know, it works great for me. I don't think it's an intermediate tool by any means. So if you're you know, beginning out painting miniatures or terrain, or if you're just wanting to, you know, start something creative, I think the airbrush is a fantastic place to go. Like, if you've got the money to spend on a decent compressor, a cheap airbrush will actually get you a long way before you really need to upgrade that. And the only real reason a cheap compressor kind of holds you back, as far as I'm concerned, was you know, I guess the consistency of air pressure can be one factor, but noise is also a big one that I had to overcome early on, because I had a really cheap compressor, and, you know, that thing kicking in and making a lot of noise can really sap the fun from the hobby in the early days. But I think, you know, a lot of people sort of shy away from it because they feel like it's a you know, if you have one, you're perhaps not a beginner, or you're in some way, you know, next
yeah, we've
level
heard
painter.
that before,
but
haven't we?
For sure. I mean, that's certainly not the case. I think, you know, like I said, that was probably I couldn't, you know, put paints to a piece of canvas or a piece of paper and make anything other than, you know, childlike art, let's say. But with an airbrush and some stencils, and even stencils I made myself, you know, just from printouts, it's really, you can really do some cool stuff. So I think if you've got a means and you're serious about the hobby, whether it be miniature painting or terrain making, it's a really wise investment. And for me, it's still probably my favorite investment, and it gets used consistently, not just for miniature and terrain. I still play around with it just to, come up with some cool stuff, and I add it into some of my woodworking projects if I need to. It's a really important tool, I think, that deserves a bit of time learning if you've got the means to get your hands on one. What about yourself, Leif?
Yeah, so I mean, I got my airbrush, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and it was on my bucket list. It was one of those things that I wanted to try out. Like, I think 3 things, like 3 professions I want to do. It's glass blowing or whatever you call it. Like, it looks amazing, and then you making your own sword or whatever as a blacksmith, and then it was airbrushing. And it looked so alluring, and yeah, I got mine. I just, threw myself into the deep end, did some, research, got myself an Iwata, and yeah, I remember in the beginning when I sort of like, I had my little room where I was airbrushing because I thought it would be super dangerous, and I was taking all kinds of precautions. Imagine essentially like a wardrobe and then a big Leif in there with like, yeah, and like looking with a mask and all that, and I mean, you should take precautions, and like when I was supposed to clean the airbrush or like disassemble it, I didn't know what went where, so I took photos of it before. Like, I was super careful. But today I can clean the airbrush in like 7-8 minutes, something like that. I know where everything goes, and I agree with you, Sean. It's a versatile tool, and I've never understood the whole sort of some people shy away from it. If you don't like it, then don't use it. But for those who wants to, because here's the thing for me: does it open certain venues or possibilities? Yes, it does. But more than anything, it saves time, and time is the thing that is a limited resource in this world. So can I wet blend stuff? Yes, and if it's quick, I'll do it. Otherwise, I'll airbrush it. If it's a big thing. But one thing also, like priming, I just recently discovered, thanks to you, Sean, actually being on my case, prime using the airbrush, and it's super good. And I'm sitting out here in an Arctic winter with polar bears walking the streets of Sweden. I can't be, having a can. Like, those polar bears will attack at first sight. They're very territorial. Also. Sometimes there might be bullshit. No, but seriously though, it's like, minus degrees below 0 here, and I could go out and prime, or I could just prime here in the warmth of my little cottage. Also, like,
I think it's just it. Sorry, you're right. Keep going.
No, I was just gonna say stuff like I used it for making water ripples. Can you literally take a straw and blow, and do the same thing? Yes, you can. But if you have it, you can use it. And I think the big investment is the compressor, like you mentioned, really, because an airbrush doesn't necessarily cost you that much, but the compressor does cost you. But once you have that, it's a one-time cost, hopefully.
I think people need to realize it is literally just a different brush. So you probably wouldn't use your detail brushing to try to do dry brushing, for example. It's just literally a different brush to have in your arsenal of brushes. Does it cost significantly more? Sure, but if you're wanting to paint miniatures for years to come, like if you think it's a hobby, then it's worth seriously considering, and not just thinking I'm never going to be good enough to use one, because you can literally start from 0.
Oh yes.
As far as the hobby goes, with an airbrush and get results. Like you said, even if it is just simply priming your miniatures and saving, here it's $33 a can for a rattle can of hobby primer. which is part of the reason I started buying the primers to put through the airbrush.
Yeah.
So whatever your motivation is, I don't be afraid of it, really. Like, there's a little bit of learning as far as thinning the paints and getting them to come out consistently and what air pressure, but it's really a versatile tool, and I like I said, it's still one of my favorite and best investments, I think, so far.
And a weird thing. See, I prime use now with this sometimes, and I have to say, like, that primer, it smells good. How weird, but it's there's something.
You are a little weird.
I am a little bit weird. Like, I'm one of those who always, when I fill up, gas in the car, I think it sort of smells good. Like, I wouldn't want to bathe in it, but it smells good.
You're a weirdo.
Next question.
All right, so this question was actually one that I sort of came up with for Leif more specifically. I think, if time, money, and space was no issue, what would you do? And I think, or what would you add? Even including time, money, or space. For me, I think, obviously, this year money would have been pretty high on the list, but I don't want to go down that path. I think, one of the things I've always really wanted to sort of try, which is, really out of reach, and it's sort of only partially, I guess, related to the hobby, but it would be, dabbling with a laser cutter, I think, for me.
Yes.
I mean, I know a lot of people would go 3D printing can solve a lot of those problems for you, but, laser cutting, I think, a laser cutting machine, I think there's just, a lot of possibilities with that. And particularly when it comes to terrain and, some of the ideas I have in my head, just, some of them are pretty tough problems to solve. And I think if I could create my own templates and create my own, put together pieces with a laser cutter or something similar, I think that would be a really fun thing for me to play with. I know there are some paper cutting machines out there, or vinyl cutting machines, that are sort of middle of the road and a lot more attainable as far as expense goes. And I mean, that may be something that I'll look at before I can look at a laser cutter at all. But and I've seen some people do some pretty cool stuff with those machines as well. So I think if it was up to me, that's probably where I would go. If I had no barriers to attaining one, I think that'd probably be my top of the list at the moment. I mean, this is probably going to be a working document, so to speak, so something that may change over time. But
of course,
I think for now, I'm still really curious about that sort of process, and that developing your own sort of templates and your own builds in that kind of environment. But like I said, this was a question that I was really curious about your answer, and I know that we haven't discussed this one previously, specifically because I was waiting for us to do this video. So what about yourself, Leif? Where would you go, mate?
Yeah, so I mean, we've spoken actually about like laser, is it called laser cutters, or what is it called? Like,
Yep, we have. That was a little while ago, but yes, we did.
We were both sort of, I think I was the one saying like, oh, I know a friend who has a glow forge, and it's super cool. And I agree with you. In some ways, it would feel like, it's like, even though you could 3D print stuff, it would feel more, and I'm going to say it, this is a loaded thing, but it would feel more like building terrain if you just cut the planks, not if you made the entire tower or printed the entire tower, sort of.
Yeah.
So I can sort of agree with, I would love to get my hands on a glow forge. That would be amazing and super dangerous.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
But I think my answer would have to be actually a good resin 3D printer. I don't have any 3D printers at all. And I used to, like, I'm a little bit weird. My son is equally weird, but younger. When I was like 10 years old, I started, dabbling with teaching myself like Deluxe Paint, which was like a Photoshop on the Amiga. And then shortly thereafter, you know, the first I got a hold of the first version, legally of course, of 3D Studio for the DOS, like Windows computer, sitting there with my Pentium, or no, it wasn't even Pentium, a 486 I think. And I started, you know, working with 3D modeling. Now thinking about the possibilities today, because I still know a little bit of 3D modeling, and having a resin printer, that would be cool. I think I would use it though primarily for minis and embellishments, sort of for certain, you know, terrain pieces. But that would, because there's a certain level you can't, in terms of detail, you can't go, you know, too easily when it comes to
I absolutely agree.
terrain.
I mean, for me the same, like probably the you know, the next step, or the thing that will probably come for me, or well, I hope it does, would be the 3D printer. You know, I think you're right. It's not so much for printing terrain as what I would be looking at. It would be those you know, those little additions, the greebles or whatever they call them. You know, it would be those little things that, you know, add to a terrain piece. Like when I sort of finish up a terrain piece, I like to add extra pieces around it, you know, just to make it sit in a scene better. And that's probably where, you know, that would add the most at this stage to my to my videos. But
so you would go with a resin printer as well then, not an FDM printer, because usually it seems like a lot of people that want to print terrain go with FDM printers, filament printers.
Yeah, and I think that's if you were looking to make the terrain piece. I think that's well, you know, and I mean, neither of us really are, you know too much about the topic, but about it. I believe, well, that's fair to say. I think if you're wanting to print your terrain, so like for example, if you're wanting to print, like if you're wanting shipping containers like these here, like, you could easily print this up with an FDM printer and it would look fine. But what I'd be looking at more is something small to put next to this, you know.
You would like to have like the handle or something like that resin printed or something like that, right?
Exactly.
So
embellishments. That's exactly right.
To like take it up to the next detail level. Yes, because I feel
exactly, which...
Yeah, we're on the same level there, that we want something to push it further, not to replace the process, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That being said, a resin printer would be amazing to do like minis, because there's some minis that like, especially from D&D, that I've seen. There's so many talented modelers out there, and you remember we spoke about how Games Workshop. I've always sort of said that Games Workshop has, when it comes to their proportions, they have a good sense of what makes things easier to paint. Whereas like WizKids love their monster models, but their humanoid models, a lot of them are, I feel like, too small scale. Like, I want my barbarian to have muscles that are like this big, because I'm half blind and an old man. I don't want it to be like, you know. So to me, it feels like that would open up a door as well, which would be super cool. Yeah,
and I think as far as the terrain goes, and like you say, the miniatures, like for me, it would be easily adding in relevant like miniatures to the terrain pieces, or being able to add variation in the miniatures that I put with my terrain. So, you know, I have a limited selection of miniatures that I can sort of choose from to display with my terrain, and that's definitely one of the things that I've noticed with the resin printing, is just the sheer variety of miniatures that you can sort of get your hands on easily, you know. And that would be, for me, one of the big draw cards would be, you know, do I want, you know, more undead, or do I want sci-fi, or you know, futuristic, or Wild West, or, you know, you can go out there and you can find the pieces that you want a lot more easily, and you don't need to, you know, necessarily buy an entire board game or a full set. You can just get a few STL files and play around then with, you know, scale and all sorts of things to really sort of make the difference. So yeah, I'd have to agree, like, while I'm primarily terrain, you know, the amount of miniatures.
And as you can see, where we are transmitting this call over the entire world, from Sweden up in the north to the sunny beaches of Australia. And internet is not always in our favor. Sorry, you were saying, Sean, regarding resin printers and such.
Yeah, we're actually almost polar opposites of the planet, aren't we?
Yeah.
We worked out. But yeah, so as I was saying, in regards to the miniatures and the terrain, I think there'd be, just the variety available to choose from, being able to play with scale of those miniatures and, really being able to mix up what I put with my terrain, because at this stage most of it is for display purposes, and the amount of miniatures I can put through a resin printer just to enhance my displays would be, or my dioramas, I guess, would be just so fun to play with.
I agree.
Maybe one day.
So Glowforge and like a resin printer, then that's the dream.
Yeah.
And a mansion.
Honestly, I think we're a lot. I think we're a lot closer to 3D printing.
I think so.
Honestly, than Glowforges.
Also, a little bit less dangerous. Toxic stuff, but there's at least no laser cutting stuff.
I don't know. Yeah, there's something about owning a laser beam that can cut things.
Right. Will you can take your cat and become a Bond villain.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Right, onwards and upwards.
Future video in the making. So, hidden gems. There's so many. There's a lot to choose from, and I don't give YouTube probably, or searching around YouTube enough to really do this without obviously missing other people's favorites or hidden gems themselves. But two channels that I have come across and I do watch quite regularly and get a lot from. The first one would be Origin Painting. So Evan over there, I know he's sort of picked up his channel a little bit recently as far as improving the quality, the audio, the voiceovers, stuff like that. I find his content really useful for me. I mean, I've watched his Space Marine painting videos, and I really enjoy them. They're on point as far as time.
See, I
and
should have
watchability
watched
and
them before I painted my Space Marines. They would have been at least 200% better. I would say.
Well, yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, you could argue that there's a lot of more detail, or people putting in a lot more. Extra details to kind of get that not table ready, but those display miniatures with all kinds of weathering and battle damage and stuff like that. And I think Evan, for me, just puts in the right amount for me not to feel like it's impossible. Like, he's a really good painter, and he's really easy to watch what he does and feel like it's doable. And I really enjoy Evan's channel. I really like, he did a display, a little diorama showing off the founding factions of the Space Marines, which I really loved it. I thought it looked so good, and it just, it's one of those few videos I've come across where I was just like, I really want to do that. I really want to make, all those different Space Marines. I really want to try and paint that. And so I really enjoy Evan over there at Origin Painting. You should check him out. I also like Earhawk's minis. Now it's EARH0X. So John over there, I think one of the things he built this year that just made me instantly know I was going back to the channel was his little orc display. I think it was like a trash bash or something even. So it was something he just sort of put together.
Good with painting orcs. Like I saw one of his old school orcs or something. And I commented on it, and I was like, it was really freaking good. Like, and the display he did, like, I caught a little bit of a live stream where he's putting it together, and, it was really detailed. And when it was finished, it looked like like something you would buy, like literally the painting on it was just
Like the build itself, fantastic, but when he painted it up, it just came together so well. I mean, I loved that build. It's still one of my favorites, I think, from this year. But there are definitely two channels that I found this year that really surprised me, and I really enjoy. So just the quality of both of them, as far as what they're able to do, just I really enjoy them. So yeah, check them out if you can, if you haven't already. What about yourself, Leif? Is there a couple that you could name
so the goal
that you've
was
enjoyed
here to
this year?
sort of say a couple of channels or so, like under 1,000 subs or so, and to me, like this is the season to be jolly and spread the love, right? So I think, I mean, I'm not saying that we're super humongous, but I think if everyone could spread a little bit of love, that would be good. And there are two, like you said, also I probably missed some, so sorry for everyone who I missed, but there are two ones that really sort of stand out from the crowd. The first one is actually I was going to say a former subscriber of mine, but I think he still subscribes. But yeah, it's just kind of weird because I know he said that I inspired him to start YouTubing, but it's Mike from Paint to Life is the YouTube channel's name.
Yeah.
He does, like, first and foremost, he is a machine. Like, I think I've tried to make one video a week, but it's tough with life and like COVID and everything. But I think he is on par with that. And not only does he actually paint the minis, it's for D&D most of the time, but he also like weaves a nice story or narrative around the minis. So it's quite entertaining to sort of watch his, videos. And he does, I think, 2 a week, one which is more guided towards the actual painting process and one which is more the story or narrative around it. So and I think we're gonna have all of the channels linked in the description down below, so if anyone wants to check them out. Now the second channel that popped quite recently up on my radar was a guy called Sebastian from Atmos Seeker. He runs as far as I can tell, it seems to be a little bit newer channel, but he's an Aussie. He's a fellow Aussie, like yourself.
Oh, good.
I think. Shit, I might have just insulted him. Or I sometimes get dialects wrong, but I think he's from Australia. Sorry, Sebastian, in case. But yeah, he runs a channel where it really is in the name. He... I think is looking for ways to bring the atmosphere at the D&D table up. So some of his videos might be about how do you get that cool sort of fog spreading out around your tabletop. Some of it might be like, hey, how would you go about streaming music and environmental ambience sound to your players in these times of COVID? How would you go about doing that? So it's quite good if you're a dungeon master, I would say, or if you're into D&D at all. And also, I have to say, with Sebastian, insane production quality. Like, it literally looks like he got canned from like a production company making his own, show in the basement, because he has lights and it's amazing. And it's very inspiring. So check.
I haven't seen
channels.
Sebastian's channel yet, but I'll definitely have to check it out. I know I've checked out Mike. I mean, as you said, he tells us a story, and there's been a couple that have just popped up on my feed that I've just watched because I wanted to hear more about. I think Diablo was one of them.
Yes,
and he's really good at weaving a quick and
you can tell that he's a dungeon
and
master.
Interesting story.
You can tell that he's a dungeon master.
Yeah, for sure. He's good at storytelling, there's no doubt. But I will check out Sebastian for sure.
Yeah, both of them are super cool, and I agree with your choices as well. And again, I think these are the choices that, at least for me, stands out as people who have insane quality and their subs don't reflect that, or that, and or put in the amount of work, to be honest. Like I said, Mike puts me to shame. He's a machine.
And it's hard to pick. Like, I mean, we've got a couple there, but I mean, it's really hard to pick. There's a lot of people out there doing, a lot of work for their channel that aren't sort of getting that, recognition that they probably deserve. So, it's not to say that these are better than the rest as far as, because there's so many good creators out there. But, for my two picks, they're definitely two that stick in my mind and that, I found really helpful this year for sure.
Agreed.
So most favorite and least favorite project of the year. This was a tough one. I have thought about this a little bit, and I still feel unsure, I guess, a little bit. I think one of my favorite projects for this year was probably my large ruined building, mainly because there was a few new things that I tried in that. So the concrete pillars, I was really happy with how they sat in the building. The windows that was another thing that I wasn't sure how I was going to do, but it turned out really good. And the building itself, like, it has the second floor, which is, it's ruined, but it's sealed in there with magnets, so it's kind of removable. You can sort of change the layout of that upper floor. It, strangely, I don't really have a least favorite project, but for me, that same project took way longer than I originally thought it was going to take. So I know I wanted to up my game as far as the ruined building goes, and I wanted to, make something with actually 4 walls around rather than the kind of, real common corner building. But you know what? I totally underestimated that build when I started it. And I think it was kind of that sense of, she'll be right. I'll sort the window problem out as I get to it. Or, it was kind of adding in more things. Like, I had no idea when I started I wanted magnetic upper floor there, even the rubble piles. Like, every time I sort of got to a point where I was close to thinking this is all the elements to it, I kept adding, like, rubble piles in the building or around the building would really help set it off. And I mean, I think I don't think I ever got completely bored with the project or in any way sort of unhappy with it, but I think it was one of those projects that I thought, a couple of weeks I'll have this one finished, and it would have been at least 4 to 6 weeks working on that one. And I mean, it like I said, it's still my favorite project for the year for a lot of reasons, but I think as far as underestimating a project, that would be one of my big ones. I think there's probably a few videos at the start of my YouTubing that, I wish probably were better, or, I could have done a lot better in time or pacing or, at least audio quality. Like, there's so many things when you start out, and I really had very little knowledge with my YouTubing at the beginning. So, and I've still got a long way to go now, but I think no regrets for sure. And I mean, if my least favorite project is that because of those reasons, then it's been a really good year for me, and I'm really happy with all my builds. So it was a real hard one to pick the least. What about yourself, Leif?
Yeah, so this is again, tricky question. I would say favorites. It's harder to pick a favorite than it is for me to pick a least favorite. Like, for me, the favorites somehow, even though I love making terrain, I really love it. I love, like, the hills I did. I love the river tiles that I did.
Yeah, you had some great ones, man. You had some really good videos this year.
And I'm super happy with those. But I think the thing that really put me in the right course was actually when I did the 5-part dragon videos. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit and say these 5 dragon videos that I did, because I did them consecutively, week after week. And I think one might think, well, that's not terrain. Well, actually, because the thing that I focused mostly on was their bases, and I really wanted to challenge myself to, like, knock it out of the park when it comes to the bases, like, make it look like their home. So. And I think I'm still today there in my display case, and still today when I look at them, I feel a sense of pride. So I have to say that the dragons were probably my most favorite, because it was my first really trying hard, I feel like.
Yeah. But it showed. I mean, they were really good quality. I know you had a lot of people kind of responding to those bases in the comments when, you know, technically probably the dragon is meant to be the, you know, the focal point. But, I mean, they were, you know, I know we were talking at the time you're doing those videos, and I know that it wasn't just doing a different base, it was doing the right setting for each dragon. And I think it's that kind of thought into those videos that, you know, and I mean the amount of time and detail you put into them that really, you know, for me, that it was a great series to watch, I have to say. And I know I even have friends that have painted dragons based on those videos, so I think it had a big impact too.
And I think that was also the thing. I think that was the first series of videos where I somehow reached out to a lot more people. And because I've had some people like, you know, at me and like, oh, I did this based on Leif over at Devs and Dice, and that's super fun because ultimately I think the reason why I'm putting stuff out, and I think probably for you as well, is because there is a side of you that wants to, well, and like we can see, we had some issues with internet again.
Oh, well, the last thing I got was, there is a side of me that wants to.
Yeah, so,
I was like, wants to what?
As I was saying,
the what, Leif?
As I was saying before the internet pooped again, I think there's a side of me and probably most YouTubers who also want to sort of teach or spread knowledge. And for me, getting, you know, or inspire at least, and getting that sort of feedback was super good. So I think that's why they will always have a special place in my heart. Now, when it comes to
what
the
about least favorite?
I know exactly which one that is, and that's for me. And I don't know if it was this year or late last year, but I'm gonna say this one regardless. It was the Squig collaboration thing. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that surprises me because that was quite. I remember watching all of those videos. Like, this is the first time I've seen a collaboration where I've bounced between so many different channels to follow up on each person's interpretation. I really enjoyed that series.
Yeah, no, I mean the series was super good and everything like that, but to me, I felt like my effort wasn't good enough. I look at it today, and I actually. One could say strip it, paint it again, but I actually gotten myself another set of the squigs.
That's a better way to go.
Revenge is on. In the future, the Viking will paint those again. I look
forward to seeing it.
I have a rematch to do against those squigs, and I might do three color. I don't know, but regardless, I didn't feel like it came out right. My choice of colors also wasn't smart.
Sure. Well, yeah, and I mean that comes from, like you said, you've been looking into color theory a little bit more, so I guess that's you know, that's acquired knowledge that's definitely handy for a 3-color challenge. But yeah, I look forward to it. It definitely didn't come across in the video like that when I you know, I didn't see that there was a lack of effort, or you know, so I you know, I didn't see what you saw, but I mean, we're always more critical of our own work, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so.
So plans for the channel for next year. As far as the channel itself, you know, if it stays the course it's been on this year, which has been really good, I'll be extremely happy. You know, I've been, you know, very lucky as far as community response and, you know, subscribers go. So look, I'm really grateful, and if I could do what I did this year again next year as far as growth for the channel, I'd be very happy. For content wise, I've got some really cool projects. Like, I've still got a massive list of ideas for things that I want to build. You know, I think you know, I really enjoy miniature painting, and if I'm not doing a video for it, it's really hard for me to get around to. I have no plans to, you know, sort of add a lot of that, but there's definitely some more painting I'd like to do on the channel to sort of help people out, because I'm still, you know, a bit of a novice as far as that goes. So hopefully I can add some value in that sense. Probably not a lot. I've dabbled with a few different things on the channel this year, woodworking and painting and, that sort of thing. And terrain is certainly the most popular and, the thing that people seem to respond to the most. But adding a few extra things in there. I hope to get more sort of requests for things, like we said, if we get it, we do our best to implement it. But I'm happy to get people's input on what they'd like to see. Like I said, I do have some big builds and some interesting projects I want to kind of work on and add into the channel, but it'll definitely be more terrain. I'm hoping to improve quality as well of the channel. So as you know, I still record on my phone, which is by no means a bad way to go. And if you're looking to start YouTube yourself, I think just grab a phone and go for it. I hope to be able to sort of put a little bit of money back into the channel to improve the quality for everyone that's subbed and watching. Hopefully the builds for next year will be, bigger and better. And look, I hope one other thing I'd hope for next year would be able to work with some more YouTubers as well. So I'd love to be able to, work on some more collaborations and sort of chat to more people in the YouTube community. So I'm very much open to that, and hopefully that'll bring a bit more value to the channel as well. How about yourself, Leif? Plans for next year?
Loads of plans. So when it comes to like content wise, I think doing terrains, scatter terrain and whatnot will probably be taking a larger percentage than it has done so far.
Sure.
I will still do miniature painting every once in a while, but so I mean it will be a miniature painting and terrain building. In terms of, so I've been sort of labeled, I guess, more a D&D channel. I will be branching out a little bit more from that. Most likely I would say Warhammer or something like that, just to sort of still staying in my fantasy primarily. We'll see. I might dip my toe in the future once or twice. And then in terms of a channel, well, yeah, I mean, this channel has actually been going on since 2017. Actually, since when I started playing D&D. And it's gone through a few mutations. I think now it is where I finally sort of want it to be. So now I think the variation will be slightly smaller. But I really love the response I've been getting from the community and all of the people who have commented and taken their time to watch or share all of the videos. So very humbling experience. Sometimes when you stop about and think about how many subscribers you have or how many people commented, it's quite emotional in a good way. And I really get energy from that. But I think for me, power on as I had this past year, I think what I will be doing specifically more with the channel is that I am on request looking into more sort of creating more community. So perhaps we'll see exactly about merchandise, Patreon, getting Discord servers up for people to join. That's something that I'm looking into at the moment, which I don't have yet, but hopefully soon.
Yeah, I'd love to sort of, I need to put a little bit more effort into my Discord server. So I do have one, but it's quite small at the moment, which is fine. It's intimate little environment, if you like, where I get I get updates from different people of different things that they're doing from time to time. But I'd love to increase that myself as well. I do have a Patreon page set up, but I mean, for me, really, getting that community interaction and seeing what people are doing and getting questions, it is a big drive for me as well. So yeah, I think you really should look into those yourself, because I know you'd get a lot from you know, from being able to talk to the people that are watching your videos. It's really good. Well, with that, I think it's that's everything we had sort of down on paper for this video, and it's probably going to go a little longer than we originally anticipated, but hopefully the content is interesting for people. And you know, I really enjoyed doing this with you, Leif, and I'd love to do another one down the track. So if anyone out there is you know, keen to know more or has any more questions, I know from my side at least, there were actually no questions when I asked my community for them. Which you know what, maybe I'm just not as mysterious as I thought, you know. So I'm fine with that. That's okay. We
are you saying I'm mysterious?
Of, things to talk about. In some ways, for sure. It could be just that you're Swedish, and that right. You know. That's mysterious to me, or mysterious enough. But yeah, no, look, I'm really glad that we're able to work on this video together. I know we both had similar ideas of this kind of thing individually for our channels this year, but I think doing it together, I think, is a lot of value for certainly for my community if they haven't come across your channel before. So I would highly recommend anyone that's you know, been watching my videos and find them enjoyable to check Leif's out, because you know, his terrain is just next level for sure. And excuse me, same to go with his painting. You know, it's really helpful and fantastic stuff. I look forward to getting into some fantasy terrain myself next year, and you know, I'll definitely be using some of the tips and tricks from your channel to help make those builds a bit better. So yeah, I'm really grateful to be able to do this video with you today, Leif, so thanks very much.
Thank you, but dude, you have to warn me before you embarrass me like this. I'm this close to starting to blush here.
Oh, yeah, nice. That's good. This was unplanned.
For fuck's sake. No, but I mean, I mean, that's the thing. We speak quite a lot, you and me, like on the Discord, and it's yeah, serendipitous that we both had a similar idea to do sort of a Q&A, and yeah, it felt natural to just sort of like, yeah, let's do it together. Because same for my audience, like if there's anyone looking into building like more modern, you know, 40k stuff, then I would say definitely your channel is one that they should check out, because you have some awesome stuff. And the thing I like about your videos is that you're very humble. Like there's no, you know, rock and roll, you know, flashy bullshit. Not that, I mean,
I don't think anyone's accused me of being rock and roll.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like it's and I honestly, this is what I told you in the beginning. Your videos are, you know, very honest. They're direct. There's no, you know, fuss about them. Here's what you do. Here's how you achieve an awesome result. And there's like very little, what do you call it, like white noise, you know. There's very little, you know, other stuff trying to take your attention. It feels very, you know, very good to go into one of those videos, very safe, and you'll know that you'll end up with a good result because you have all of the information presented.
And I mean, I appreciate any feedback, you know, whether it's from yourself or from the community.
You should add more rock and roll.
Or more rock and roll, right? No worries.
No. I think your videos
are
awesome.
Going to achieve that. So yeah, probably some of that comes from my, you know, the whole I don't know what I'm doing aspect of you know, making videos. But yeah, no, I definitely consciously try to keep them on point and you know, try not to waste too much time, which is why I probably looked back at some of my early videos, excuse me, and thought, damn, some of those were way longer than they needed to be. But yeah, I'm still improving, and you know, I hope to improve that quality and you know, and get up there. So, but I mean, this has been for you and I, this has been a really fast friendship this year. You know, that we have a lot in common. Even though we are, you know, a world apart, and you know, it's been a real fun, you know, year since sort of being able to chat about, you know, what we're doing, the way that we do. So, you know, and like I said, I'd love to do another one of these videos, you know, in a few months or at the end of next year to share some more about what's been happening.
Definitely, look forward to it.
Fantastic.
Well, with that, I don't know if we should wish everyone Merry Christmas. Well, we missed Christmas, but a Happy New Year.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's still relevant. I think Happy Holidays might be
Happy
more
holidays.
precise at this point. Yeah.
See, I can say
I
it in
hope everyone
Swedish.
stays safe and
You know, God Jul, Gott Nytt År, God Fortsättning. See, none of that made any sense to you, right? Good Christmas, good New Year, and happy continuation.
sure. I'll just say, Merry Christmas, stay safe. I hope 2021 is bigger and better for everybody. And yeah, I mean, to me, feels like it makes a lot more sense than what you said. But I mean, each to their own.
All right. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, wow. Well, if you've made it this far through the video, thank you very much. Both of us tend to ramble when we get going, but it was a really fun conversation for me to have with Leif. There was a lot I learnt from him, and he's a great guy with a great channel. If you haven't checked it out, please go and do so. I've really enjoyed doing this. I've really enjoyed YouTube this year. It's been a fantastic hobby, and I've got so much from it on so many different levels. Also, if you've enjoyed the video, please hit like. Thank you very much to my Patreon supporters this year. You guys really have helped me out. You actually helped me get my hands on this new microphone here, so thank you very much to you guys. If you'd like to support the channel, please check that Patreon link down below. You can also donate via PayPal, which just has there's a link in the description down there. Thank you very much for all the people that have commented, liked, or subscribed this year. You guys are really pushing me forward and getting me through all of this. I have a big year planned for next year for the channel. Hopefully I can make it bigger and better for you guys. And look, my heartfelt thanks. Wish you all happy holidays. I hope you have a great new year, and I hope new year brings you a lot of good things. Thank you again, and you guys take care. Bye now.